Third obstacle, false pity. Of every form of genuine altruism, there is a selfish imitation. Compassion, which the Buddha preached, means that through consciousness of our mutual solidarity, we have communion with the suffering of other beings. But only one who truly loves with the impersonal love will be able, without a shade of selfish reflex, to join his heart to another's and so lighten suffering by effective compassion. But suffering is not to be confused with pain. Pain is the result of a disorder or of discord between personal inclination and the inclination of your providence. Pain may be the result of karma or of present ignorance, but consciousness can find a way to avoid pain, even when suffering is inevitable. Pain is a reaction of the personality on either the physical or mental level, but suffering is the struggle to take cognizance of a split between one's actual condition and the true condition that one may hope to attain, and the effort to return to health produces a state of tension. If there is resistance on the personal level, physical or moral, the result is pain. But if the condition is consciously accepted, then pain can be eliminated and reduced to mere suffering. That is to say, a trial, and one's vital reaction to the trial can even become a form of joy. Suffering is the school of consciousness, which cannot be acquired without it. Compassion consents to experience the trials of human suffering in order to better transmute them. It is an act of pure love. Pity is a personal reaction to the suffering of others as it appears to affect oneself. It is a reaction of fear that the same pain may come upon oneself, or else of condescension, the benefactor excusing himself for being privileged. In either case, it is an impression related to one's personal sensibility and judgment, rather than to its object. Now, how can man, who knows so little, unravel the multiplicity of causes and effects? The masters of compassion, who give up their beatitude to sympathize with human suffering, would not deprive anyone of the trials necessary to his evolution. These words will offend those who are, quote, of this world, and practice pity in order to be entitled to it themselves. That is why it is important to distinguish false charity and arbitrary pity from disinterested, sympathetic altruism. Nature has no pity. She follows the directions of providence for her becoming. Each animal obeys the laws of its own kind, without pity for the prey on which its life depends. But apart from this, there are many examples of altruistic behavior, which in man might easily be attributed to pity. For example, female animals will nurse cubs which have lost their mother. A wounded creature will be fed and helped by its kind. An animal will risk its life for its young or for the herd. This type of altruism is obedience to a certain innate consciousness of animal solidarity. There is no calculation or judgment in it, and no pity, but there is justice in the sense of obedience to a law of the species. Man, being the summit of the animal kingdom, is between this animal condition and the suprahuman condition, in which all nature's levels of consciousness are added together, and one becomes conscious of all one's different consciousnesses. Between these two extremes, man's situation is uncertain, for his instinctive consciousness is obscured by his concrete mind, and his spiritual consciousness is usually hidden and undeveloped. This being so, the automaton and its brain consciousness exercise undisputed control, and it has the illusion of directing its acts and feelings with free will. In actual fact, this free will amounts to no more than the possibility of obeying either the call of the suprahuman realm or else the law of human animality. He who obeys the former can rise to the suprahuman state. He who obeys the latter must follow the slow evolution of the animal man. But in either case, the two higher aspects of consciousness must not be suffocated by the automaton, as they most frequently are. That is the third possibility, and then free will is an illusion, since the man merely obeys impulses, and these come not from his conscious self, but from a personality manufactured by heredity, environment, education, custom, habit, and convention. For each of these three possibilities, there is a corresponding aspect of the feeling called pity. The third case corresponds to spurious pity, which is a personal reflex either of reason or sensibility, more or less self-interested. This type of pity does not arise from either the instinctive or the spiritual consciousness. There are two possible sources of altruism when it arises from a real feeling of solidarity with the suffering of others. The first is the instinctive consciousness of solidarity in the species, either animal or human. This is the altruism of animals, or of a human creature which listens to its innate consciousness. The other source is the consciousness of the spiritual solidarity of man. It belongs to that type of altruism which is totally free from egoism, the highest form of compassion, quite impersonal and disinterested. The way of the heart leads to it directly. It does not follow from this that a man who cannot yet feel disinterested altruism must remain indifferent to the sufferings of others. Absence of altruism would be his ruin. But truly helpful altruism is incompatible with the selfish reflexes of pseudo-charity, for the latter, being an illusion, prevents true compassion from being felt. True compassionate altruism is the result not of an effort of will, but of the rending of the veil of virtue, which prevents us from seeing our selfishness. Tear that veil away, ignore your excuses, trample on your spurious pity, and let your own heart suffer the misery of others. Then you will know how to relieve a suffering which you feel as if it were your own. Men, animals, and all creatures living upon earth are part of the cosmic man, whose states of consciousness they are. But man, since he is capable of reaching the highest state, should feel his solidarity both with those below him, whom he can help, and with those as yet above him, with whom he can collaborate. For whether he knows it or not, man cannot escape from this solidarity. He ought therefore to be wise enough to acknowledge it, since it lays upon him a responsibility. The measure of this responsibility is that of your own consciousness. Enlarge, therefore, your consciousness by breaking the shell of selfish egoism. You will then be able to consider without danger the karmic consequences of every one of your acts, with no divine, quote, pity to interfere with them. For when you feel your solidarity and the responsibility it entails, you will understand that the law of karma cannot be used as an excuse to exempt you from the duty of altruism. Heaven shows you the example in the compassion which is eminent in the law of karma. For in the world of becoming, nothing is absolute. If one has lost the way, it is still and always possible to change direction and return to the way foreseen by providence in the beginning. This is the meaning of divine compassion. But what motive can be strong enough to induce this change of direction? There are three elements in the moral situation of any individual. First, the plan of his destiny, which was engraved upon the embryo. Second, the deviations caused by education, lack of awareness, and the incoherence of the different aspects of the self, with the karmic complications which result therefrom. And third, the warnings of the spiritual consciousness, which from time to time disturb us with anxiety or discontent. These fugitive gleams of light are not strong enough to overcome our habits and the rational or passional resistances of the personality. In consequence, the spiritual witness is apt to manifest its presence by shocks or trials, which for a moment or two startle the sleeper out of his dangerous unawareness. Whether these shocks are helpful or useless will depend on his reaction to them. In such a case, ignorant pity would prevent the trial and so destroy the increase of consciousness to which it might have led. Compassion, being more comprehensive, can help a man to transmute his suffering into realization of the light. For relieving human misery, therefore, the most effective form of altruism is to become aware of our solidarity and of the help which this consciousness can give to others. For to show a light which helps to guide men out of the paths of confusion is to collaborate with the divine compassion. But before one can show this light, one must free oneself from the errors engendered by the illusion of pity. If you wish to be generous, but it must be without judging either the suffering you relieve or the benefit you confer. It must be done without argument, without trying to impose your wishes, without trying to play the part of destiny, whose plan you do not know. If you want to help people, love them, and love will tell you what to do.